long, slow, deep breath in. And the relaxing exhale. Notice what you're feeling. How's it been to be in that sacred space in nature? It is our natural home. So how are you? What are you feeling? Give me one word. Beautiful. Calm. Connected. Calm? Home. Home. We got that, huh? Whole. Peaceful. Graceful. In love. Deep. Moved. Pink like a flower. We're in spring, the renewal of life. To me, it's my favorite time of the year. I think it's very important for us at this time, as we contemplate the spirituality of Native American culture and people, we'd be remiss not to also recognize it as a culture of great resilience. At one time, government sanctioned genocide, the taking also of our people from their homes, our children to residential schools. And I would suggest to us that the only way the culture was able to survive is by its spirituality. We are now in the time of the sacred seventh generation, the renewal of respect for indigenous people around the world. At one time, the indigenous people were considered savages, like animals. And now they're perceived as those who understand the rhythms of nature and the sacredness of life and the importance, the significance of our relationship to Grandmother Earth, Grandfather Sky, all our relations. In the culture, it's extremely important. You notice in the prayer, I mentioned our ancestors, invited them into the space. Our elders, great reverence given. Elders are our, think about it, what's the value of elders? Wisdom, history. That's why the genocide was so significant, because it killed elders and children, the next generations, and the wisdom keepers. But despite that, as you look around in your own areas, you see this resurgence of the language, of the rituals and ceremonies. I mean, in my lifetime, 1924 was the first year that Native Americans could be citizens in the U.S. 1978, 4 years out of high school for me, it was now legal for us to practice our traditions. And look where we've come. I don't know if you realize that Lily Gladstone was at Ashland Theater a couple summers ago. Now look at her. I happen to know her aunt, so I hope to meet her someday. Our way is the way of spirit. Relationship to all of life. I have a relationship even to that which seems inanimate. And it is a relationship of reverence, of connection. The hard part about trauma, our natural state is to be connected. But our survival instinct, when we are facing trauma, we disconnect to make it through that trauma. So it's very important to do practices that help us to reconnect with the wisdom within, the Great Spirit within us as well as the Great Spirit that surrounds us. That's how we heal, is when we reconnect. So you'll notice today, Native American spirituality has become more mainstream. It's connecting more with all of life. That is beautiful. The belief is that everything is spirit, so that there can even be bad spirits. Spirits that cause illness. The coyote is known as the trickster in the Karuk community. We call the communities our people. Tribe is a Western designation. So we'll say, who are your people? And so it's when that happens, when we feel like there's bad spirits or bad energy, we would go to the shaman. We would go to the medicine person. In our region, Northern California, the Karuk Hupa, they were called sucking doctors. It's not only in our region, because it also goes over into Nevada, Colorado, more western United States. Because what they believed is these doctors would suck the disease from the individual. And so there's a whole protocol to becoming one of those medicine people sucking doctors. I don't know that there's any left in California any longer, but it's usually handed down generation to generation, and that's why trauma is so significant. I deeply appreciated adding drumming today. Traditionally, women did not drum or play the flute. In fact, in the beginning, when things started to shift and change, and when you saw women using the drum and flute, there was a lot of, I don't know about that. But if you think about the reason why women did not need the drum or flute, is because life comes through us. Women are already considered spiritual beings. So the flute and drum was used to help men attune to spirit. So it's not wrong for women, just to have that understanding of the original reason why it was set as something for the men to practice. Notice how it is for us when we're with friends and family. We started this tradition this morning when Kathy was talking about how we met and the things we've done through the years. We're telling a story. The story of our journey together, the places we've met and shared. Storytelling is very much a part of the Native culture. And because it's an oral history, that is how the history is handed down. But I would suggest to us, so important that you tell the history, not only of your own journey, but the journey of this community. We all have been through things where we've learned and met spirit, where spirit has walked with us, and hopefully where we've tuned in and felt the guidance of spirit. I would suggest to us that the way of the Native American culture, the traditional people, is always a life of walking in the way of spirit. The challenge we face in the culture is resolving the trauma. So you may meet someone who doesn't feel very spiritual. I would suggest to you that's because there's still suffering there, still a call for healing. But that trauma can be resolved, healed, lifted through our spiritual practices and other things. As a licensed marriage family therapist, like I said, I use Kathy's music because it's healing. When I work with Native people or people who use the smudge, use storytelling. I once worked with a medicine man, and they came in for marriage counseling. We never talked about their marriage. we talked about how to work with the horses and to have respect for the horses and how the horses related. Made it a much more open and accessible way of giving counsel and listening and exchanging ideas about what worked best for the horses. Acculturation, meaning depending upon the individual's way in the world, their exposure to Western culture. Like I said, there's a rebirth and a resurgence of learning the old ways. For some Native people, they have no interest. But there is certainly an upsurge in the youth, learning the ceremonies. Powwows is often the way that people relate to the culture. Traditional people, what we call the old ones, or traditional people, you don't even have to be old. And older seems much younger than it used to. But I'm not drawn to the powwow because I'm drawn to ceremony. And powwows are competitive dances that were used in ceremony. So it's not keenly supported by the old ones. The highest form of communication. Any idea what that might be in Native culture? What was that? Prayer. Singing, what? Drums. Animals. Stories. Listening. Dance. Thank you, Reverend. Which is also listening, right? I miss this because I haven't had this experience in many years. When I was working at Redding Rancheria, I used to have a women's group, and that would happen in that women's group. And I can remember seeing a group of elders come into Lion's Restaurant in Redding, and when they sat down at the table, they were completely silent. Highest form of communication because they're doing intuitive listening. They're listening psychically, sensing what's going on with each other. I remember this story from a friend of mine who said she was non-Native and her husband was Native, and he would talk about his family coming to visit. He was so excited that they're going to come and visit. And she says, and I walk in the room and it's completely silent. Why aren't you talking to each other? And he said, oh, but we are. So it's a good practice for us to tune in not only to others, but first begin by tuning in silence to us. What's going on with my body, my being, my mind, my breath, spirit within me. Then practice listening to others. Of course, dance and song. You notice that the powwows, the regalia is very usually bright. Very few use traditional animal skins and the traditional way. I'm drawn to the traditional way. And there's a relationship, like I said, to everything. And so many of the dances, like one that I'm thinking of in particular is the prairie chicken. So the dancer is actually acting like a prairie chicken. So they're fashioned after the relationship we have with animals, whether they're two-legged or four-legged or winged. We are one family. In this region, there will be stories that you can hear about. I don't know if there's an organized community here, but wherever you go, there are Native people. Now you can drive along the road and see Rancheria. Never used to see those signs, did we? Notice, too, that when you look at our history, the resiliency of this culture, those spiritual practices are what has caused us to survive and again to begin thriving. We're very different. We're collectivistic. We're not individualistic. The American way is, what do I want, right? In Native culture, it's about my brothers and sisters, my family, my community. But if I'm healthy in doing what I'm doing with my community, I'm also healthy for me, aren't I? It's always about balance. And that when I, for instance, make regalia out of animal skins, I'm giving thanks to the gift from that animal. I have reverence for that gift. Even plant life. Because plant life is alive. Plant life is sacred. So it's important that we see that we are all connected. Connected. We literally mean that all is one. Native American spirituality, the first metaphysicians. Time is different for Native people. Not too interested in clocks, which can cause some problems with employment in Western culture. We try to move by rhythms, by seasons. Winter is more of a time of introspection, going within our lodges, within the lodge of our own being, so that we come out refreshed and renewed and engage in life, new in spring. You stop and think about it, we have a lot of guidance, don't we, that's right around us, if we only listen deeply. We believe in cooperation versus competing with each other, a higher way. Today we talk about it in our society about collaboration. Everyone wants to collaborate. Well, that's cooperation, isn't it? What we come to understand is that we can do so much more when we work together than we can individually. I want you to think about, as I'm sharing this, what speaks to you? How am I, ask yourself, how am I changed? What is it I need to bring to my life? And I could spend all day with you, but I know we have time limit. Tell us about dreams. Dreams, yes. Dreams are seen as everything's related. When someone dies, we call it walking on. And so our dreams are a way of spirit speaking to us, imagining some outcome, taking us to other realms, helping us to get a broader worldview, to connect us more spiritually with things beyond just this physical realm that we are in. We are spirit beings. We're connected to all of the dimensions. I can remember one time doing a vision quest, and this gentleman drumming, and he was playing this CD. I'd never heard it before. Beautiful music. In fact, I was tempted to share it today, but it's very long. We'll have to get together again soon. So when I was through, I asked him for the name on the CD so I could order it. So I wrote it down. I had this vision during this process of this native man dancing across the sky. It was a crimson sky. It was stunningly beautiful. And when the CD arrived at my house and I opened it, I dropped it. Because the man in my vision was the man on the front of that CD, Douglas Spotted Eagle, who since I met him that time has traveled with me in this lifetime. That was some of his music you heard at the beginning of the meditation. So asking ourselves, how do I connect with myself, with all beings? Can I add to my practice that deep listening and silence? What is it for me? Oftentimes people will say, I'm drawn to Native American culture. Of course you are. We're drawn to all traditions, aren't we, truly? The synagogue, if you haven't been to one of the services, you need to go. Wherever you go, Spirit is present. If we only but listen, sense, feel. I want to share with you, because we could talk, I have a lot of different things, but I want to share with you a couple of things that I think are very important. Black elk. I'm sure you've heard of black elk. The first piece, which is the most important, is that which comes within the souls of people when they realize their relationship, their oneness with the universe and all its powers. And they realize that the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit, and that the center is really everywhere. It's within each of us. So I'm wondering questions about the culture. Just take a couple minutes before I close with, of course, another ritual. Ritual is part of the way because it helps us to go from conscious thought, just like we do today, into a being state, moving us far beyond the intellect.
Psychedelics are also very popular these days. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about psychedelic use within the native traditions.
Peyote was used, and the purpose of it was to take us from the present physical state into more of a spiritual state. Now here's the dilemma for me as a psychotherapist, because psychotherapy is the study of the soul. And for me, I also work with the brain and the mind. The brain being different than the mind much bigger than the brain. So I think it's very important, if we're using some substance, that we are in a controlled environment. In other words, if I'm with native people who are used to using that as part of their practice and have reverence, or approaching it with reverence, is completely different than a couple of friends getting together and using it. And I think that holds true for all the psychedelics. We have to be in right relationship and balance. We have to have reverence for our brain, our mind, our body, for spirit. So it's about being responsible and mindful. Any questions you have, Kathy?
So if we want more of what you shared today, what would be how would we open up to this and find it from sitting here?
Well, I encourage you to see if there's any local presentations from the local community. Sometime in the near future, maybe we can do a workshop here in the afternoon. I would love to do that. I would also encourage you to couple films that are very important. How many of you seen Killers of the Flower Moon? Pretty intense, but it is accurate. Also, From Wounded Knee to Standing Rock. Has anybody seen that? I'm actually trying to do a showing in Reading, so maybe we can connect it up to here too. Because from that particular era of time, Wounded Knee, came the ending of the restriction on Native American practices, 1978, when they said you're free to do your practices Indian child welfare came from the outcoming of that as well, which means if you remove a Native child from their home, there's a protocol. First with family, if not with family, then their community, if not with their community, another Native community, if not with any natives, then a non-Native family. And everything in Native American culture has a protocol. It's always about relationship, basket making, going out and searching for food, hunting, shooting of arrows. Everything you can imagine has a protocol because of the focus on reverence, the focus on connection. So, looking at different books, Land of the Grasshopper Song is about the Karuk people. You can get a number of different books now. I was trying to think of there's a lot of coyote stories you can get online. Black elk. I'm going to be visiting this summer Chief Joseph's gravesite in Joseph, Oregon. I visit the Southwest usually every year. I haven't the last couple of years because I broke my leg when I was in the Southwest. But in the Southwest, they have the cliff dwellings because of the environment. It's so dry. It's all preserved. And when you go in those spaces, they feel sacred. I'll go to Hawaii and it feels sacred on the Nepali coast. Yes? It's not a training outside of community. It's training through the legacy or the calling. Sometimes we tend to, in this area, they're called sucking doctors or medicine people. So it's usually a recognition from, you have a teacher. I'm not a shaman by authority. I'm a shaman by desire. Probably because I pursue spirit. I pursue spirit in all that I do. So even in my psychotherapy practice, my goal is that you're coming into a container of spirit. That makes sense? Yes? I don't, but that's a great book. And the other thing that's happening, I don't know if you've heard of the 13 grandmothers. Yes. So those indigenous women from around the world, they're remarkable. Pioneers will have them every so often in their conference that they have in Marin County. I know that we could keep going. So I'm going to close. I'm going to invite you to take one more long, slow, deep breath in. And the third song on that CD, as we listen to the Native American 10 Wisdoms. Practicing silence. The earth is our mother. Care for her. Honor all our relations. We must open our heart and soul to the Great Spirit. All life is sacred. Treat all beings with respect. Take from the earth what is needed, nothing more. Do what needs to be done for the good of all. Give constant thanks to the Great Spirit for each new day. Speak the truth, but only of good in others. Follow the rhythms of nature. Rise and retire with the sun. Enjoy life's journey, but leave no tracks. You are my people.